solutions, but also asking questions. Because I believe it is the mandate of all of us, including this joint committee, as the representatives of the people, of all the people who appeared before you, Chair. Only the members here are elected directly by the people of Kenya. And therefore, we must reason like the people of Kenya. Because I believe a representative, you are not elected to leap forward. You are elected to represent. And representing, you only represent the people who are like you. So our reasoning must always correspond to the reasoning of the people of Kenya in such a matter as this. And therefore, Chair, some of the issues I'll be highlighting, I may give solutions given the experience I have, but I'll also give a lot of questions, because I believe those questions I'll be giving forth, it is also our business to seek for answers from the right offices where the people we represent may not necessarily be able to go there by their own. Starting off, and I hope I'm clear on that, some will be questions, because I need answers also as a Kenyan, as a member of parliament, but also as a practitioner in the capital markets. But others will also be proposing solutions. The answers meaning there are technical departments of government who should provide answers to those questions. So, Chairman, my first issue, and I'm doing this in good faith just for a start. I'm doing it for good faith. If, for example, now I am told Kenya can get value for this transaction, I will leave this meeting because my business will be done. And having said that, I have some experience in the capital markets. Chair, you will allow me. There is some information, I also have some I'll say today, some I'll say in the floor to guide this discussion nationally. And there are some information I'll just highlight for you to also dig further, because I know, and I would not want to bring emotional suggestions. I'll say things that I know for sure. I have a backup of evidence. Number one, Chairman, this transaction that you're having is the largest in terms of quantum since our independence. Kenya has never had a divestiture of this nature in terms of quantum. It is the first time. And therefore, it should be important that we make this debate as robust as possible. Before the National Treasury even brought the sessional paper, I would want to know, Chair, and it's not you to answer, I'm just asking so that the committee can continue also interrogating it, whether there was public participation done at the level of the National Treasury, and especially given the importance of this transaction. The second thing is that I am privy to the information that some of the people who actually represented the government of Kenya in this transaction are neither contracted by government, they are also neither civil servants. Who did they represent? And especially some I know. And when the right time comes, I will give names so that we move forward together as a country in this matter. How can we have in a transaction a person meeting our buyers informally, and the same people also do business with the buyers? And as they say so, Chairman, I know exactly what I'm saying. Even the people who I am referring to, they know. So I'd want to get a list from the time this transaction started, the inception, which is the committee that has been handling this transaction on the side of government. Who are these individuals? So that we run away from this blanket issue of saying government, yet the people we are calling government are actually not government. So, Chairman, it is important since this transaction started that we get a list of the individuals who have been involved in negotiating for this transaction. But some of the issues, because I've been following, I will raise, are also issues that have been raised by other people. And this is my second issue. It's about the valuation. Chair, when I raised this issue first, the response I got from government was market price. National Treasury, I asked, what is the basis of valuation? They talked about market price. Chairman, since when I started buying shares, there is a canon of the market that is not just in Kenya, but across. that markets can give liquidity, so that when I want to trade shares of KenGen, of Safaricom, there is somebody or a platform for me to trade with. But the market do not necessarily offer valuation. And I'll use Kenyan scenarios. Chairman, if, for example, you look at today, in the stock market today, because it's online, you realize that a company, for example, Kenya Power, trading at today's price, the market valuation of Kenya Power is around 30 billion shillings today, actually 29 billion shillings. This is a company with assets of over 400 billion shillings. A company making 24 billion in net profits. Chairman, I invite this committee to check if properly we are looking for the welfare of Kenyans. Could we sell Kenya Power even at double price of 60 billion? If somebody offered the government of Kenya today to buy Kenya Power for 60 billion shillings, double the current price, would the government sell? I think the answer is no. The same company, the valuation was 4 billion shillings 15 months from today backwards. Nothing fundamentally has changed, but the valuation of Kenya Power has more than times 7. There's nothing that has fundamentally changed. This just to show the vagaries of the market when it comes to valuations. You can talk about KenGen. KenGen is making around 10 billion in net profit every year. The valuation as of today is 60 billion shillings. Their asset is 500 billion shillings. The valuation of KenGen is 60 billion shillings today, Chair. Can the government sell KenGen even at 100 billion today and say we are dealing with market price? If you compare KenGen with a peer, a similar company, let me pick one market, for example, Nigeria. If you check NGX, the Nigerian stock market, there are similar companies like KenGen. One is called Transcorp Power. There is another one called Geregu Power. Geregu Power actually had a transaction the last 2 weeks. They produce power half of KenGen, yet their valuation is 200 billion. This is one market called Nigeria, valuing half of KenGen at 200 billion. This is our market here in Kenya, valuing double of Transcorp for 60 billion. That is a total mismatch. And that is why when there is a big transaction, markets are usually never used. And I'll give you the final example, Chair, so that we just understand where I'm coming from. I gave this on TV the other day, but it's good I say it in record. In 2013, Chair, I had some few shares of a company called Pingo. And the company was trading at 27.5 shillings. And I'm still handling the issue of market price. 27.5 shillings. So some guys decided we are going to buy off Pingo. And they gave us an offer, just exactly like the one we have from our buyers. They gave us an offer of 40 shillings. That was a 45% upside. And me as a small-time shareholder, I was thinking, this transaction is too good. We need to fasten. I cash in the 45%. But what did they do? One company called Centum petitioned the Capital Markets Authority. And they decided to open the bid for other people to bid. What was the consequence? One company came, that one called Centum. This one had bid 40 for a share of 27.5. That is how it was trading in the market, and that is the last price people traded in the market. So one guy gave us 40. After the bid was opened, me, I was thinking with my 10,000 shares, this is already too good a deal for me. Centum petitioned, they offered a bid of 50. After 2 weeks, another company gave a bid of 55 shillings. I actually thought it was drama. Later on, the same company that was to buy at 40, called Rare Trading, gave the final bid after negotiations with the other bidders of 70 shillings upfront cash, and they were to divest from land which they have. You know Rare Vipingo, the area around Vipingo, that's the land I'm talking about. These are not stories. They gave us a quotation. After divesting from the land, we were to get an extra 15 bob. But because they wanted to exit very quickly, they actually told us, you not wait for the land to be divested. You guys, you are going to pay you 85 shillings now. A share of 27.5 shillings, Chair. And I pocketed myself 85 shillings and other Kenyans. That is the reason why when you give forth a competitive process, you get people competing for your asset. The language of a buyer is not the language of the market. When I want to buy something and I start talking about the market, that is the language of the buyer, not the seller. And that is where I see a problem is. On the same chair, this is public information. If you check when the directors of Vodafone, their group now, they are called Vodacom, called for a press conference, they were very, very upbeat about the transaction. In Kenya, the way we are asking for information, you realize here most of the information we actually got it from the buyers. Most of the information was volunteered by the buyers. So when they went back to SA and they called the press, one of the people there actually commended the directors for getting such a good deal. So we are here as Kenyans giving our asset for a song when the buyers on the other side, they are being treated like kings for getting a good deal and of course for taking advantage of our incompetence as a country. Chair, the second thing I have handled it already. I could have given many examples, including the recent one of Amson and Baburi. Before the information leaked in the market that Amson was to buy Baburi, and the price they ended up paying, it is upward of 175%. But they calculated when the information had already leaked. That's why they talk about a single digit, a double digit upside. But the real one before the market leaked, it was over 175%. Just to give many examples. Even banks in Kenya are undervalued. So what I'm trying to say here in this issue of the market, it will be a tragedy for Kenya to value this transaction based on the market. Because even private companies, take for example, banks. I want to give an example of a bank like KCB, where the government has a 19% stake. The current valuation of KCB is less than 230 billion shillings. It is around 0.7 to book value. Meaning, if you disband KCB today, the money you would get, it is trading in the market at 75% of the value. Would we go to the market and say we are selling this company at market price really? Even I will give the final example of a company that has no government attachment. Take a company like Diamond Trust Bank, a company which is a bank with 100 billion shillings in shareholders' funds or co-capital. If you buy the share today in the market, it is trading at 32% of that value. Would you go to Happy Bank to tell them to sell you the share in the market price? Would they agree? It has never happened in the market and elsewhere. Currently in the US, there is an ongoing bid of a company called Warner Brothers Discovery, the owner of CNN. But they are not selling in the market. There is a bid, and the final bid is two companies, one called Paramount and Netflix. Then, this jargon about the market, a sophisticated market like the US, is seeing the value of in competitive bidding in a private company. But here in Kenya, we have been cornered by our buyers, and we are now talking the language of market price. It will be wrong, and history will not judge us very well if you continue this transaction with this kind of consideration. Second, I have already handled that process. Chair, 6 billion shares we are selling with our population, it means the government is selling my 100 shares as did in Europe. If you divide the shares we are selling, Chair, and you give Kenyans their share, everyone in this hall, because we are all Kenyans, today will be allocated 100 shares. So we must look at it that way. So my 100 shares, what is the process that has been taken for the buyer to be identified? What was the process? How did you one day wake up and decide we are going to sell to the current buyer? I will highlight just a few because I know there will be questions. Let me go to the next one. There is something in the market for any transaction to work. For any transaction to work efficiently, Chair, is something called information symmetry. Now, we are selling our stake of 15% to a company who is already inside Safaricom, who are already having board members. So definitely, they already have a step ahead of any other person who would think of buying our stake because of the information asymmetry. That is something else that we have to look at. Chair, allow me so that I go, this other point I think is the main one that brought me here. So before I go to that one, this issue of valuation, let me just recap a little bit in 1 minute. So, beyond the market, can we get the government of Kenya, when they conceptualized this issue of selling our stake, which valuation methods did they employ? Who did they hire to do the valuation? When did they hire those people? Because listening to the proceedings in the previous appearances, I heard about KCB and a framework contract. But Chairman, I would want to see that framework contract because I've been listening so that I don't waste your time. And
Mheshimiwa, I think yes, Treasury did make that, and as a committee we have requested for that framework. So, and I'm sure as a member of Parliament you will definitely have access to that once it's right.
Thank you very much, Chair. You know the reason I'm asking that, Chair? The day of the announcement of this deal, it became unwholesome. This is not how even transactions have been done previously. You come and bombard the market with information, and then immediately you are already announcing the price. So who determined that price? Who are these people who are hired to determine this price? That is something we have to interrogate. So there are various variations. That is what I'm trying to arrive at. In telcos, you can do EBITDA times, depends on how many times it is. But let me use the most simple manner and parameter of valuing a company as diversified as Safaricom PLC. Chairman, if you want, the easiest is price of earning ratio. It's called P ratio. Safaricom, remember this financial year, they are having a blockbuster increment in profit. Chair. So, we are selling our cow just immediately when it is coming out of the roots. What do I mean about the roots? Conveniently, the market has been bearish, but Safaricom has even been more bearish for this reason. You are building a flat here. We have a company, let's say, called ABC Limited. You are building a flat which you are already collecting rent. And that rent used it to build another flat. So the person looking at the bottom line will see that all the money you made in your first flat is already building the second one. So there will be no much profit. So our flat here is Ethiopia. We went to Ethiopia, Safaricom went to Ethiopia. Licenses alone, one license was 850 million USD. The other one was 150 million USD. You've already sunk 100 billion USD in Ethiopia on licenses alone. I'm not talking about towers. They have done thousands of towers in Ethiopia. So that company, before it went to Ethiopia, because my main point is around valuation, in 2021, the share price was 45 shillings. And the market valuation of Safaricom PLC in 2021 was 1.8 trillion shillings. 2021, it has since invested in Ethiopia. Yes, it was bleeding, but the bleeding of cash in Ethiopia, according to Safaricom themselves, in the release of the last financial year, they are anticipating by next financial year, they are breaking even operationally. How convenient is this then, that we come just when Safaricom will start adding into the bottom line, and then, surprisingly, we want to sell our stake, but also basing it on the vagaries that Safaricom has gone through called markets. So in terms of P ratio, Chair, Safaricom, the kind of profit they make this year, their P ratio by March, because they close their books in March, will be around 16.1. P ratio measures if you rely on dividend payment and the company pays 100% of dividends, how long would it take you to recover your investment? In terms of Safaricom, the PE ratio by the closure of the financial year in March will be 16.1 years. Now look at this chart. The peers, take for example Orange. Orange PE ratio is over 30. You take 30 years. Take any other globally. Just do your homework, but let me zero in into themselves. The guys who are buying us. Bharat Airtel is like 39. The guys who are buying us, the best their PE ratio has been is 40. The best. The recent one is negative because at the group level, they are making losses. So that's why they went for a celebration after leaving Kenya, because they knew, based on that parameter alone, they are buying us, they are actually getting us for free. Chair, I want to go to the main point. And Chairman, my pleading is this. If there is one point I would indulge the committee to just dig deeper, it is this one I'm giving. Chairman, in any transaction, Honorable Kaluma is a lawyer, I'm sure he knows. Any commercial lawyer knows. In any transaction, the detail is not even in the price. The detail is in something called quotation precedent. Quotations precedent. Quotations precedent is like I am buying a shamba. So I'm buying some piece of land in Migori. So when I'm buying this piece of land, part of the condition, let's say I'm buying it for 2 million shillings per acre. By the condition precedent, I'm told, we think there might be gold here. In case there is gold, the condition precedent we underwrite there, I will always have half of the revenue from that gold. Chairman, that supersedes even the consideration. I invite this committee because I know what I'm talking about is the fact. Kenya is losing over 100 billion Kenya shillings on condition precedent alone. And the Communications Authority is the bigger conveyor of these quotations precedent. Licenses that were due last year, including the main licenses, which I have submitted in my memorandum. Like the network facilities, the one that deals with network facilities, which is Tier 1. Chairman, who authorized the Communications Authority to commit to give a discount to Safaricom in the renewal of 5 licenses, which some I have tabulated in my memorandum? That Kenya in that respect is losing close to 100 billion Kenya shillings on conditions precedent. This we have already promised the buyer. We have told them, you buy us out, you'll pay half the license fee. Half the license fee in terms of billions of shillings. Money enough to make basic education in Kenya free today. So the Communications Authority, the management, went ahead to commit Kenya to a loss of over close to 100 billion Kenya shillings on conditions precedent. The board had not met when the management of CA did that. And I want them to table to this committee when the board of CA met to actually discuss about not any other matter, the conditions precedent that we have given to the buyers where Kenya is losing over 100 billion shillings. So we are here talking about 2 or 4 billion, but the net amount of money we are actually getting as Kenya is 1 or 4 billion, because 100 billion shillings is already lost in quotations precedent. Chairman, If there is one thing that you have to stop, is that one, because there is no basis. Secondly, licenses that were to be guaranteed or given for 15 years, all of a sudden, the Communications Authority gives an additional length of time of up to 25 years. Chairman, all of us here.
A point of order, Chair.
Yes, what's your point of order?
Chair, good on Ndindi refers to the page of the presentation so that we follow. Because the presentation he's making is very important. On what page?
I decided not to follow the memoranda page by page because I leave it for record, but the one I'm referring to is on page 4. Can I continue, Chair?
Mheshimiwa Kaluma, did you have, what was your?
Yeah, Chair, it is confirmed it's on condition precedent.
Okay. Go ahead, Mheshimiwa Ndindi.
So, Chairman, I was saying this. Some of the licenses that other players in the market are getting for 15 years, the buyer cornered us as Kenya to put on a length of 25 years. Members, my brothers and sisters, we are here committing our country for the next 25 years. And I want all of us to add 25 years to the age that you already have. And we commit that we can continue answering these questions, that we committed Kenya to a loss of 100 billion, that we are willing to answer that question until, if you are 40, you are 65. And what is the basis of even this condition precedent? It is just absurd, Chair. And this must stop. And some of these conversations that were done, that we take this discussion and this transaction so light that we are doing phone calls. Phone calls where Kenya is losing 100 billion shillings that make this letter to the, when the transaction happened, Chair, it was a hurry because I thought this is the only person who can bail us out because we are nearing election, we need money. So that issue then,
Yes, Mheshimiwa Ruto, what is your point of order?
I wish Mheshimiwa, when he said doing phone calls is something of material, probably you would substantiate that. I look forward to it. Thank you.
Mheshimiwa Ndindi.
Thank you very much, Chair.
I think just for the
right time.
No, I think at the right time, but for now, I think it's best to just withdraw that phone call so that we just make progress on the matter that we're here for.
I can't withdraw, Chair, even if I'm to end my discussion here, because my presentation today, history will prove me right. I know, and I'll table at the right time.
But you see, you've mentioned it in this committee, and once something is mentioned on this committee and the member has clearly asked for the substantiation, if you cannot provide that at the moment, it's best, as you said, when you have that opportunity to present it again, then you can come up with the substantiation. But for now, I'll kindly and respectfully ask you to withdraw so that we just, you're doing a very important presentation. Let's not lose that. The Honorable Ndindi.
Chairman, let me withdraw to postpone it to a later date.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you. Go ahead, proceed.
Chairman, have you looked at mobile termination rates? What conditions precedent did we give to the buyers? Conditions precedent, and as I'm repeating, is this, Chair. You want to sweeten the deal. In the markets, we say sweetening the deal. So that, okay, I'm selling this cow, but I'm also selling with the calf. You try to sweeten. So, the condition precedent we gave is actually bigger than what we are selling. So we lose money on one hand through CA, one on licenses, 5 of them, over 100 billion shillings. Secondly, on this other side, Chair, we are here now pushing Kenyans into a corner through mobile termination rates. I know you'll do that homework. I'm almost finishing, Chair. Chairman, I want this committee to investigate further because the buyer we are having is not beyond reproach. If we are dealing with a buyer who is beyond reproach, the market would quiet. one would have an issue. But then we are here dealing with a buyer who has already proven to the Kenyan people that they cannot be trusted, and especially with integrity. When Safaricom share was being listed, I was working for a stockbroker when I was in university. And therefore I have the details of that listing. Chairman, there was a company called Mobitelea, which owned 5% of Safaricom by the time of listing. Previously they owned more. If you look at the listing memoranda of Safaricom, this was how the shares were allocated. 35% was to be listed, 35% was GOK. 35% was our buyers. 40% in the market, which we all own. Now, Chairman, in the current memoranda, which was released by the same buyers, they now have 40%. Let me rephrase so that I am on record, I am correct. By the time of listing, 35% was GOK. That's 35%. 35% was our buyers. That is 70%. 5% was a company called Mobitelea, which was a vehicle of political patronage. The amount that was listed in the NSC was 25%, not the statement I had said before. So we listed 25%, it is in the market. All of a sudden, in this memoranda, now government has 35%, but our buyers already bought Mobitelea. So it means then the buyers were in cahoots with Mobitelea. Can Kenyans trust this company to be above board when it comes to this transaction when they already have shown their true colors in terms of integrity insofar as Mobitelea is concerned? Second one, and this one members take it now just like the one for quotation precedent. Seriously. Chairman, we are here being told about market price of Safaricom, but there is something we are not being told. That the Safaricom share price has some shades of the company share having been suppressed in the last 1 year. In June of this year, when the buyers knew there would be this transaction, they did something clever. They immobilized their shares, 16 billion shares. They immobilized their shares for the first time since the listing. Do you think that is normal, Chair? Immobilization means this. The shares were in certificate form, just like many other government like many other government stakes. They are not in the market. They are usually held even in certificate form. So what happens, you have to mobilize this share to go into the CDSC. So what did our buyers do? They immobilized 16 billion shares. What does that do? It sends signals to the market of an increase in supply of the same share. So what did the share do? Just exactly as the buyers intended. The share became suppressed. So as the market has been so bullish in Kenya, in other counters, Safaricom bullish but measured. Why? Because the market is already signaled that there is a 16 billion immobilized share by somebody who can sell today. Sell meaning they can supply to the market today afternoon. That CMA has to investigate whether there is even any share out of the 16 billion that has been offloaded out of the immobilized stake. Chair, as I go to the close, transaction, I had the National Treasury talks about KCB. This is how this market works, Chair, and I'm saying it in good faith and in humility. If you want to know, there is no other hand. One, and especially in the transaction cost, because it is abnormal. Transaction costs in the NSC, they are based on some parameters. And the more, the cheaper. If you buy 2 shares today worth the 2,000 shillings, in percentage you may end up paying a higher commission but it's already capped at 2%. So you can't pay more than 2%. But what the brokers do, the more the weight of the transaction, the cheaper the commission. Now, when I heard that Kenya is paying a commission of an average of 1.5%, then I knew this is a red flag. You just need to do one thing as a committee. Tell KCB to do in writing whether they have something called a stockbroker's agent. That will clear that maneno. They do in writing to commit themselves. Because being a listed company, they'll still report in their financial year whether there is any cost that was incurred in this commission. Stockbrokers agents, how they do, you go to a stockbroker and say, this is my deal. And then you are put into the system as an agent. Then you are given between 35 to 50% of the commissions your client generates. So you just need to ask KCB in writing whether in this transaction there is a stockbroker's agent. Because if there is one, second question is, why do you actually need an agent? A company that is already being controlled by GOK. KCB, the chairman, is appointed by government, and the board composition is appointed by government based on the 19% stake. So why would you need an agent for you to connect Kengen to Kenya Power, for example? Why? So, chairman, whatever savings we make, it should go to the Kenyan people. But the way to cure that, let them commit. And then Parliament will check later whether in this transaction there was associated cost of an agent, because that is how things can happen. Lastly, the way forward, I have always said it, and I know 100%, Kenya may end up getting over 350 billion Kenya shillings if we follow part of them. And the many suggestions that I have heard from many people who have appeared before you, Chair. One, this issue of listing Safaricom came up even when I was in the corridors of power. So it's not something new to me. And therefore, whatever I'm saying is just to remind even the people who are there today. But there were better proposals than now. Why are we falling back to inferior proposals? The proposal which I would give, which even them they know, break Safaricom into 3. And you're not doing anything much. Breaking in paper, you're not breaking it like with Nyoro. Break Safaricom into a telco. Number 2, into a fintech. And number 3, into a tower company. The sum total of the 3 will be much more valuable than the whole. That's one. The second option, that is one option. The second option, if we really need money so fast and you don't have time to break down, it is very simple. It will take us very little time to list Safaricom PLC in the London Stock Exchange. The London Stock Exchange now, they are actually begging people to list in London because the global market have tilted towards America. So the LSE is now dry in terms of listing. If you show a signal you want to list, they can even send their finance minister here in Kenya tomorrow to list in the LSE. Once we list in the LSE, we expose Safaricom into the global markets. So people who don't know Safaricom, they only know M-Pesa, they'll get to know there is this profound company called Safaricom. It is actually the owner of M-Pesa, because M-Pesa is actually more known globally than Safaricom. What does that do? It creates interest. Chairman, after that, within the same option. After listing the LSE, open bids, international bids, for only 2 months, Kenya will be surprised that we will have people bidding even above the current consideration because of the other parameters that I gave. And I can bet to you, Chairman, and this issue is very weighty in my heart, is very heavy in my heart. The market already knew that Etisalat wanted to buy Vodacom. It was already known in the market. And therefore, I will not be surprised if our buyers today, next month, they are on sale. Why can't Kenya be patient for 2 months? We go directly to the main buyer and we get the right valuation. When we open an international bid, I can guarantee you we'll have the same buyers bidding at a higher price. We'll have audit bidding at a higher price. You'll have Tisserand themselves bidding. You can have investment vehicles like BlackRock bidding, like Blackstone. Eventually, Kenya will get more, as the story I gave about Rea Vipingo. So my submission, Chairman, is let us open this bid to international bidders. And we lose nothing. If Kenya gets an additional 150 billion, I thought the mileage will go to government. They'll build more roads. So, I mean, everyone benefits. Why can't we be patient for 2 months and we get a higher price, Chairman? Thank you very much. And as I submit, we look about the dividend. This is another securitization, as you know, of dividend. I would want to know even from the committee, maybe separately. You know, there's something called MTDS, whether it's actually part of it. We are now securitizing dividend. This dividend was part of our Appropriations Act, the current one. Because part of our revenues, the dividend is part of it. So we have securitized. I may ask many questions even about the current IPO that is ongoing. The proceeds were part of the Appropriations Act. So don't we see a mismatch? We have securitized dividend for the next many years, yet in our long-term and medium-term planning as a country, it is already accounted for as a revenue direct to the consolidated fund. I think Kenyans deserve answers on that. Thank you, Chair. I may give more rejoinders as we interact with members. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, the Honorable Ndindi Nyoro, for your excellent presentation and submission to the committee. Members, you've had the stakeholder. Now I'll be calling him a stakeholder. He's here as a stakeholder.
Like what?
So, members, yes, Mheshimiwa Ariko?
Okay, thank you,
And
Chair.
I will give it to Mheshimiwa Kaluma, then Mheshimiwa Kiru.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I need to say that I need to present, to appreciate the presentation, a well-informed and insightful presentation by our stakeholder, Honorable Ndindi Nyoro, on this matter of divestiture of Safaricom. Honorable Chair, I wanted to ask Honorable Ndindi Nyoro, because he was Chair for Budget during the said period where the shares of Safaricom started dropping from the figure he just mentioned of 40 something shillings per share. That was the period between 2022 to 2023. And from my research indicated that the shares came down because of interference of government and further investments in these other regions because of risk-averse nature of some of the shareholders. That's one aspect I wanted to ask Honorable Ndindi Nyoro. Secondly, he talked about materiality of the transaction. It is true that this transaction is material, and the shares are supposed to be sold at the secondary market. And we are informed even these other shareholders were not aware or were not informed of this particular transaction. What is the practice when there is such material transaction by one of the shareholders? I thought this matter must have been brought in a special AGM meeting or annual general meeting. Was there such a meeting that was held? Because I'm well informed that he's one of the shareholders in this particular institution. On the issue of the representative of government representative in this transaction. He has been in government for more than 10 years. And in fact, is a major person who has been fronting economic aspects of government. Now, because he has changed his mind to go to the other side, and that's what I normally talk of ironies of some of the leaders. When they are in government, they are positive on all the aspects of government. But when you run away from the government, you start being opposing everything. So what I'm trying to ask
you may need to call the member into order. Ndindi Nyoro ran away from the government. What is the aspect?
Ndindi Nyoro has been a chair, is a member of parliament, and I think he's still a member of parliament. So
Chair,
that has not.
You see, there's a saying that
What's your point of order, Mheshimiwa?
I think the government has three hands. It's the executive, judiciary, and the legislature. So Ndindi Nyoro, Honorable Ndindi Nyoro, being a member of parliament, is part and parcel of the government. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable
Chairman, they also.
I know what. Let's allow the Honorable Ariko to continue with his points kindly.
Chair, there's
What's your point of order,
there's a
Mheshimiwa?
mindset saying,
Mheshimiwa Ariko, there's a point of order. What's your point of order, Mheshimiwa?
Chairman, I want you to provide guidance so that we don't degenerate from the main business of why we are here to politics of government and not government. This is a serious business for all Kenyans who are taxpayers.
I think, as Mheshimiwa
Chair,
Makapa suggested, can we kindly
history provides us insight into
Yes,
what we are
but-
discussing.
yes.
What we are discussing. There is a mindset saying that a jealous family member is more dangerous than a hateful enemy. You can brainstorm around that. Let me continue with my.
Please, let's
presentation.
continue on the subject matter that has brought all of us here. Mheshimiwa
Honorable
Ariko.
Ndindi has not made a presentation of the true intrinsic value of Safaricom so that we can base our argument on his presentation. As a scholar, the presentation of Honorable Ndindi is from a scholarly world. So I want to appreciate that. But he has deficit in terms of giving us the intrinsic value of Safaricom and how much are we supposed to sell these particular shares. What is the best valuation model? From his presentation, I have observed that he wants us to go into the competitive market. The secondary shares are supposed to be competitive. And just because he has given us some insight on the internal dealings, where one person has clear information or correct information over a particular issue, and this issue is about the valuation of the company, it's about the price of the share, and in fact, the future prospects of the company. What interest is Safaricom going to get from the future prospects of the company, which are more valuable than the current state of Safaricom? Finally, Chair, because I've handled on the issue of competitive process, Honorable Ndindi has talked about the stock brokers. He has mentioned about KCB. And probably it's about the transaction advisor. What is the position of Organization for Economic Development, OECD, on the transaction advisor? Because it has guided on the ceiling for transaction advisor, which I said earlier, somewhere last week, that it is between 0.5% to 1.8%. And from the presentation of Treasury, the transaction advisor percentage is 1.3, which from my professional point of view is within the bracket. Thank you, Chair.
Mheshimiwa Kaluma, then Mheshimiwa Kirwa, then Mheshimiwa Paul.
Chair, let me join the members in commending Honorable Ndindi Nyoro for coming forth to participate in this process at this stage. I know as a member of parliament he'll have another stage, but this is bold. He's also a Kenyan. And so let me thank him for requesting our clerk to permit his presence to make these presentations at this stage. I know we may also visit other counties during public participation, take interest and join them. And Chair, let me thank you also for following Honorable Ndindi's request, allowing him to appear before us. Listening to Honorable Ndindi, Chair, I'm asking why he didn't request to join us as a stakeholder, so that a number of these questions he's raising would help us as representatives of the people to raise them with these various bodies coming here. In fact, makes me think, Honorable Chair, that because I know we could be having Central Bank of Kenya today, later on, Honorable Ndindi should stay around. Because ultimately, if he stays around in that capacity, he can join us as representatives of the people in interrogating these matters. Why do I say so, Chair? Chair, when Honorable Ndindi indicated he's coming and you told us so in the morning, you remember we adjourned briefly. And we were very elated. We thought there is a smoking gun. And he has come and he has started as if there is a smoking gun. But I'm still waiting for the gun to discharge. The gun is not discharging. Makes me think there is something Honorable Ndindi is withholding. Honorable Ndindi, don't fear. You're in Parliament. Tell us, release the smoking gun. You see, Honorable Chair, Honorable Ndindi started by saying there is an issue with valuation. And he said, I know, to use my own word, some conspiracies, and I'm going to give details of people. Do we go in camera, you give us these details? Because Honorable Ndindi, you know the attitude of some of us with anything that is corrupt or collusion. In fact, I was waiting, Chair, you saw me take my pen, and I've been waiting. I just wanted to hear so and so, so and so, so and so, so and so is involved, and is depriving Kenyans of their rightful asset. You know, the Ndindi has come, gone round. I want to request Honorable Ndindi that on that second limb, and I can tell you, you know Peter Kaluma as you do other members of this committee, if you were to point to us that there is some conspiracy, some corrupt practice around this matter, Honorable Ndindi, I can tell you, we would adjourn all the other hearings and this committee will make a decision on my intervention. And you know me. So I would still request and ask very humbly, my brother, having come forth, the generalities you have spoken here, you could speak on the floor. Give us the details of these people you indicate you will give. The better if the media is there. But if you need in camera, please stay on. But I retain my ask to the chair to allow you to sit through. You are entitled with the permission of the committee, as a friend of the committee. Chair, valuation has been a matter disturbing us a lot. And I agree with Honorable Ndindi, we are not sitting here just as Parliament. We are sitting here representing Kenyans in the sale of their assets, which if we were not sitting as representatives here, Kenyans would have been met elsewhere, and they would have raised issues. And by the way, we've been raising these issues. when we raised the issue of valuation, they told us there is something called market price. And we were told if you go to the stock market now, and Safaricom shares are listed there, you will get between 28, 29. We were told there is something called P/E ratio, which I see you repeating here. And you were taken through these calculations. The price earning ratio. I'm not an economist, I'm a lawyer. But we were taken through the details. We were told about intrinsic value. And if you've been following proceedings, I've been speaking to what Safaricom is in our telecom space, in our mobile money transfer space, and in our image and heritage as a country wherever you go across the world. I thought when you mentioned you are coming to guide us on valuation, you know, you would leave us here with a model of computation complete with how we arrive at a figure which we can tell Kenyans as representatives, this is the fair value. You know, Chair, we are at a position no better than where we were before Honorable Ndindi Nyoro came. And these are questions we've been asking. So Honorable Ndindi, could you, beyond what you've said, using all these methods, by way of arithmetics, you know, demonstrate to us how we can come to a better share value so that we determine this issue and we make a determination together with you, which we will present to you to approve or not. Beyond the fact that you are saying, if we went for competition, we would yield better. We've raised the issue of competition that Kenyans have been seeing. Now, beyond the issue of competition, please let us know your justification for saying that Kenya going beyond the price in the market of 28, 29 to 34 still is an undervaluation. And if so, still in your view, give us what would be the right valuation with a clear pathway to it so that we can pursue it. Number 3, Chair, I'm a lawyer, I'm not a finance guy. Honorable Ndindi is speaking to the matter of valuation of a company. What we are dealing with here is valuation of shares, not a company. I know the value of the company may be one consideration you take to your intrinsic value, which I've requested you to compute. But I think we need to understand that the only benefit you get from shares are dividends as and when they're declared. Share in company law, companies are what we call persona jurídica, juridical persons. You don't own the assets of the company. You don't own the company. You own shares and you trade in those shares and you derive benefits by way of dividends. Full stop. So let us be clear that we are not valuing, Safaricom. We are valuing shares in Safaricom. And so it is away from the company and, Honorable Chair, the assets. But Ndindi, I need you to share with us on something. You know, when we enacted the Companies Act in the 11th Parliament, you were not yet with us. I was at the center of it. We had a section 975, subsection 2B, in which we said any foreign company in Kenya to be registered here had to let go at least 30% shareholding. Was it to the government or to the local people? There had to be that percentage. Out of the idea that we needed to attract foreign investment in 2016, you remember, an amendment was brought, and when that amendment was brought, we deleted that provision. Now leaving these shares open to everybody. If I were to eat your mind, thinking about the place of Safaricom, do you think we should recommend a reinstatement of that provision? So that when we have strategic companies or corporations like Safaricom, there is the limit is set, even if we are not to say local, we say the government shall have, on behalf of the people, at least this percentage, whether that, because I tend to think, Honorable Chair, that this could be what could have informed our having 35 then. It could not go below 30. What is your thinking around that? But tied to that, what stops Vodacom from going to the market now that these shares are listed and incrementally, buying the shares to the level, that they want, so that we are justified in saying this is not the way to go. The shares are listed, and by the way, they will be buying not at 34, but at 28, 29. What stops them now from going there? And if they were to go, do you measure the loss to the country in terms of what we seek to do? On the transaction cost, as advocates, we have the advocates' remuneration order. And Honorable Ndindi, it will tell you, on this kind of transaction, you will charge this least amount. Of course, we don't have upper limits. So the fees a lawyer charges are guided. People keep speaking about 0.5 to 1.5. We were told even by the CS Treasury and other people. I'm not a finance guy. Is there an instrument under which this is prescribed so that we can look at it? But I agree with your presentation that, by the way, the higher the volume, the lower the commission. Stockbrokers we will investigate, later on. I end by commending you and requesting that either way, let the smoking gun be seen and let the bullet be shot. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mheshimiwa Kirwa. Then Paul, members, let's avoid, if some colleague has asked a question, let's not repeat the question, please, for the sake of time. We have other stakeholders waiting. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity to ask this question. And thank you, Nyoro, for coming up as a Kenyan to just give this presentation. And we have to make it clear that Ndindi Nyoro is a friend or a colleague to all of us here. So that is why this presentation was very, very important. And Ndindi Nyoro is not just a regular member of parliament. He was the chair of budget. So he has so much information pertaining this particular issue. Ndindi Nyoro started saying he wants to know how it was validated that the stock is at 34, not 29. He gave us so much information about the sale of the company. He gave us so much information about several other companies. My question to Ndindi, because the CEO of Safaricom sat right there where you are. The CS of Treasury sat right there where you are. They made a specific presentation like what you have done. We asked them questions, the same questions that we're asking you, and they gave us answers. They were very clear on how they went about valuation. Safaricom told us they cannot interfere when a seller and a buyer is present when it comes to stocks. If a buyer says, I want to buy these stocks, and a seller says, I want to sell these stocks, Safaricom has no say in who exactly or to stop it. Now, you are telling us that we should have all Kenyans come together and agree on who is going to evaluate this sale before it's done. That is not the case. We are told Vodacom gave us a premium price for the future dividends of the country, or of the stock and all that. So Mr. Ndindi, as a colleague and who has so much information about the government of Kenya, and who has information about this fund that we are going to set up, infrastructure fund. Of course, the money will come probably at the moment. If it is concluded before it's formed, it will go to another fund. But I want to ask you, do you think that all Kenyans would have sat down and agreed on the price rate? You know very well that Kenyans, there is a way of evaluating the stock and agreeing on how to sell, and there is nothing that was wrong on this sale. There is nothing. If you have information that there is something wrong that was done, then be on record and tell this, because so many people are following. So many people are just listening on your presentation today. So just tell the people, this is your opportunity to actually tell the Kenyans something went wrong and this is what went wrong. But based on what we know, the CEO was there, of Safaricom, the CS was there, and several stakeholders have come and just did their presentation the way you did. So my question to you is, do you really think there is a smoking gun in the country? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Mine would be brief and straight to the point. Thank you so much, our colleague. You really made a powerful presentation, which has really enriched me, and I believe it has enriched the committee. But I would just like to ask, Honorable, that you seem to say that you have no problem with privatization. Yes, and you have a problem with evaluation. And Honorable Kaluma has mentioned it, but I was just feeling like I really wish you would have given us what you think was best in terms of valuation. Because you've talked of us having maybe more 150 billion, 100 billion, so I don't know. In your computation, because they have floated at 34 shillings, as per you, how much would it be? And you've also put it so well that while you were in the corridors of power, there were some of these things which were floated. And in your view, if we'd have split into three, we would have gotten more. So as at that time, are you able to give us the figures that, as at that time, because you said there were even more, how much are you looking at? And what exactly happened as at that time? What hindered the sale as at that time that probably now is okay? So thank you. I think that is my main concern.
Thank you, Mheshimiwa Manduku.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you,
The members kindly want to, if we can get straight to the question so that because of
Honorable
time, we are.
Nyoro, for your insightful presentation. I think I'll be straight to the point and I'll not repeat what has been asked. First, I happen to be an architect and we have our scale of fees. Cap 525 prescribes the minimum payable to architects. To the best of your knowledge or recollection, is there a minimum payable to stockbrokers by law so that we can deal with this matter conclusively? Number two, on the split of Safaricom, this discussion was mentioned by CS for National Treasury, and he argued that if you split it into three entities, then you lose the leverage. You increase costs by having distinct entities. But I also know from my own research and experience world over, where we've had a split of giant telcos, the residue entities have not done very well. And I'll give you an example. We had General Electric splitting into, I think, aviation, medical, and energy. the aviation sector never picked up. We had Johnson & Johnson splitting into pharma and medical. We have had HP splitting. We've had, I think, Toshiba and other companies in the world. So, given that Safaricom is dominant, don't you think that splitting it into distinct entities then will create avenues for other competitors to cannibalize the small entities? Secondly, how efficient will splitting be given that they all rely on the same infrastructure, network infrastructure? And then how will we have to deal with that then, given that we will have shareholding in the three entities? Will the shareholding be evenly spread out, or will we opt to hold one entity and release the others as the government? I think that needs to come out clear. It's it. The third question, and I think you brought a very important dimension here on cross-listing. What has been the hindrance that all along a very successful company that, like Safaricom, has not cross-listed in other countries? And you gave London as an example. And what route would we take as Parliament to ensure that this cross-listing is achievable without any legal hiccups? My last question, what is your experience and what is your comment on double layering, where we have Vodacom owning Vodafone and then Vodafone owning part of Safaricom? Don't you think it would have been easier if we eliminated this layering, multiple layering? Because someone came here and insinuated that this layering could be suspect. Thank you, Chairman.
Members, let us allow the Honorable Ndindi to, there were so many questions from the members to respond, then we'll do another second round. So yeah, but let him respond, and then we'll give the remaining members the other option. So go ahead, Mheshimiwa Ndindi.
Thank you very much, Chair. With your permission, I have all the time when your time permits, but I'll be brief so that we also give other members an opportunity to also interact on this matter. Honorable Ariko, you asked many questions, but I'll be brief in response so that I know you have afternoon sessions. You talked about when I was in budget chair and what I did for Safaricom share price. And I don't even know what to answer you. Because what does a budget chairman in Kenya has to do with the market prices of shares? There's nothing I do. I'm a market taker, just like any other Kenyan. And on that matter, respectively, Honorable Aliko, you are my brother. This issue came up when I was there, and I gave my voice. And my voice is as I have given the committee, because there's nothing to hide. The beauty about this conversation is that even the people who have appeared before you here, the technocrats from the National Treasury, they know the things I'm saying here are the correct ones. That was what they were also saying themselves. But because of the urgency of wanting to sell this year now and not tomorrow, that is my answer, what I think has changed. Then you asked about the valuation of, in terms of KCB being the transaction advisor. And I agree with you about there is the base price and there is the upper limit. In fact, you can change nothing. You know, in a business transaction, if Honorable Maduku is an architect and he wants to do his work for me for free, that is his business to do that. My business as a Kenyan is to look at where we are approaching the ceiling, not the floor. The ceiling is more important to me because that is where you put in the other costs in quote. And in this matter, Honorable Aliko, through the chair, I only have one direct thing that you need to do to safeguard the Kenyan interests. Even if KCB gets 3 billion, it is okay. Just do one thing. Ask them, do you have a stockbroker's agent? And they do it in writing. Why am I saying so? That is how deals are cut. And we are here to protect public resources so that instead of the deals being cut to go outside of the public purse, this money to be directed into building roads and other things. So if this committee gets that comfort in writing, then we will have a follow-up document that if KCB ever pays anyone in the name of being an agency, then this house will ask them, an agency for what? Do you need any agency to go to KCB to introduce a Safaricom stake, where the chairman is already a representation of government? That is my take on Abu Aliko.
Point of order, Chair. Safaricom is a business entity. So whatever it does in terms of transactional advisor, it is part of its business. So even if one of the main shareholder in KCB is doing another transaction somewhere, it will not give for free. It will charge transactional advisor fee as part of its business. Thank you, Chair.
Honorable Aliko, we need a whole day.
Order of order. Respond to the chair, not to Aliko. And I'm the chair now.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, because I'm answering Honorable Aliko, just to put it in perspective, through the Chair, I'm answering Honorable Aliko's question. I think we need a day to first orient ourselves onto what we are doing in this hotel today in this session. Because Safaricom PLC has nothing to do with a buyer and the seller, Honorable Aliko. They have nothing to do with that. And I thought the CEO was here yesterday, and he said it in the language we cannot understand. Safaricom has nothing to do with the transaction between the government of Kenya and our buyers. And therefore, they have no business to appoint a TA, a transaction advisor. It is only the National Treasury who actually brought up the issue of KCB, not Safaricom. And therefore, I'm not talking about Safaricom. I'm talking about the National Treasury because they should be answerable to us as Kenyans. So my question is simple, and I gave my proposal. There are some things you can achieve by just doing one thing. You can hit two birds with one stone. To remove any darkness and gray areas, let KCB do in writing whether there is a stockbrokers agency attached to this transaction. You'll have cured everything else. Yes. You talked about transaction cost and you gave for OECD countries. Kenya is not an OECD country, remember? Kenya is a growing economy. So it's the right parameter for the wrong jurisdiction. Some are repeating themselves, but you also talked about shares came down after government invested in Ethiopia. Precisely. The shares of Safaricom were trading at 45 shillings around 2021. And the valuation of Safaricom PLC then was 1.8 trillion shillings share. Now we are coming at a level where the same Safaricom has already invested in Ethiopia, colossal amounts of money, but we are valuing it at 2/3 of the then price. And then you are told, no, you have to keep quiet. You are basing it on the market price. That question is next, Honorable Karuma. I'll highlight it. Honorable Chair, Honorable Kaluma talked about he talked about a smoke gun or a gun smoke. And I am disappointed, to be honest, that a country losing 100 billion shillings is nothing important to any Kenyan. I am disappointed about that. The condition precedent alone, which I gave here, Kenya is losing 100 billion.
Chair, point of order, please. Honorable Nyoro, yesterday we had civil society. In fact, they are even more concerned than you are. In fact, they were saying that we should not even be here. Or if I recall what they said. So, as a point of information, many other Kenyans are as concerned, if not more, than you are. So I think, take it easy.
It's in good faith, the Honorable Maduku, through the chair. What I'm saying is, the question was directed to me.
The tone you are using when Honorable Ndindi Nyoro, through the chair, is what is taking that, like, there is nobody caring. You know, this is a committee of parliament, and you are a member of parliament, you can understand. we are listening. And then thereafter, this committee will retreat and make a judgment on the reports, including what you're going to do.
Through the chair, Honorable Ruto, you know, I give my presentation and I pinpointed direct specific areas. Then if you come to me and tell me, stop talking now, it means you are choosing what to listen to. And I don't think that is fair, because I gave correct figures, what we are losing, the parameters we may do for valuation. How would you be waiting for me to give a smoke's gun?
Mheshimiwa Ndindi,
Yes.
I think let's make progress. What he was expecting, you did say maybe you'd mention names and all that. That's what he more or less referred to. But the figures you gave, I think is also in the, so that's perfectly in order. Thank you.
Let me not even, Chairman, I'll not go to that so that we don't,
Thank you so much.
we don't degenerate. But with humility, what I presented, I feel is very important, because we are losing so
There
much
is no
money.
doubt it's very important. That's why we're all here, and I'm sure you took your time to research, do all the works that needs for you to appear before this committee, and even giving your time to come and give your views to this committee, I think is a huge sacrifice for a member of parliament. So no doubt that you put in a lot into this. And that's why we want to hear you, and we don't want to digress so that we lose the main reason that you're here for. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and I'll not go to anything that would harm the ambience of this meeting. In terms of valuation, Honorable Karuma, through the Chair, was more about valuation, and he asked whether I can come up with a specific figure. It is possible, yes, but this is the point. It will still be subjective. You get what I mean? My question is not about whether I have a figure or the other person has. My question is about the process of getting into that figure. The figure that we are giving, by all contexts, even the other shareholders who appeared, we cannot agree it is grossly undervalued based on the presentation that you had and the valuation parameters that has been put forth. And again, there is one way we can strike that. And I like Honorable Karuma, Honorable Chair. He was telling me, tell us how to do it, but don't mention. In fact, I wrote it. How can we come up with a valuation, the right valuation, but he also put a rejoinder, but don't tell us about competitive bidding. It's like saying, please tell me how I can cure malaria, but don't talk about malaria queen. I don't know what to say on that, because I think the best way to realize this value is to subject this transaction into global competition. When you have people bidding, and I give examples which I don't want to go into, of rare bingo, where I didn't read, I was a participant. A share that was 27.5, just like the current valuation of Safaricom by the time of announcement. But we ended up pocketing 85 shillings. Why? As I answer that question about Honorable Karuma. You know, I was listening also to the National Treasury and other people talking about market. Vodafone can buy from the market. It is fine. Why can't they go and buy? I also threw the same question. It is for one answer. When you are dealing with a block sale, you input a huge premium based on availability. Today, if I wanted to buy Safaricom shares, only 2% of Safaricom, I will not get in this market. So you have to do it an off-the-market transaction. And the more the reason when it is an off-the-market transaction, it comes with a huge premium. It's not Safaricom that is first to do that. The last 1 year, we have had Baburi being bought by Amazon. If you look at the price 1 year prior to the day of, exactly 1 year prior to the day of transaction, Amazon paid 175% upside. But those giving examples are talking about 6 months for convenience, because the market already knew there was a transaction and the share had already started to respond. I talked about Rea Vipingo. I can talk about Kenokobi. Kenokobi also was listed and also had a block sale. Block sales across, that is what happens. And now what you do in the block sale, you go outside the market. You know, the market is already an auction for small-time shareholders like me and you, where we go buy 100 shares today, 200 shares today. The market provides liquidity. When I need to pay school fees, I go and sell the shares. And therefore, the market, what it does, it assigns the value for the retail shareholders market. However, when you are doing a block sale outside of the market, and Safaricom, I'm repeating, is not the first one, they generate humongous premiums. And, Chairman, this is my question. If there is nothing to hide, if we are above board, why can't we just, we will not even spend money to advertise. We'll just signal to the market. Safaricom is on sale. We open bids for only 2 months. I can guarantee you, Chairman, that 2 or 4 billion will get even an upside of 350 billion for the same stake. And I'm basing on the P ratios that I gave of different telcos and different companies of that nature. Now, as Honorable Kaluma talked about 30%, the company's role, and I agree with him. Personally, in terms of my political leaning, I would actually not advocate for an amendment of that, because I believe in unfreed capital flows. For economies to grow, don't give quotations, especially when you need money. You know, when we institute a law on capping 30% on Safaricom, you can't do a law singularly for one company. You do it blanket for all the companies. So my leaning, economically speaking, I will not advocate for the change of law in terms of pushing international investor outside. I would actually advocate for a free flow of capital. That's how South Korea did, China did. Some of the brands we talk about, including China, all of them, Alibaba, that was American money, BYD, that was Berkshire Hathaway's money at some point. If you go to even Singapore, Keppel, they grew on other people's money, DSB Bank, other people's money. So I believe in an economy where let capital flow, and especially inwards, not outwards. The other thing is the same Honorable Karuma asked. You know, this is the confusion we may get into. Oh, Vodafone can buy this share cheaply in the market. Okay, they are reasonable. Let them go and buy. I'm repeating. They will not get supply. There is only 25% stake listed for Safaricom. Some are already held by institutional shareholders who are not selling because they know the price is not the current one. They know the market does not represent the valuation. Just as Rare Vipigo 27.5 was not representing the valuation, which we ended up having 85 shillings. It is the same thing. Honorable Kirwa, thank you very much for the compliments. And I'm always very, very happy to see you, Honorable Kirwa. Very happy, and especially given the challenges that have been there. Seeing you healthy and good, we are all very happy for that. Again, many things are rotating around valuation. I think that is the valuation, because it's cutting across. The way to handle valuation is to go to the markets. There's no way we are going to run away from that. You also talked something about these guys we are selling to are already inside. It's called information asymmetry. So they already know so much than I know. So they already know so much than the market knows. And the more the reason they actually held a celebration in SA to celebrate taking advantage of Kenya. To cure this, just expose Safaricom transaction into the international markets. Kenya will not lose time. We can only take 2 months. And as I said in my presentation, we will definitely get a higher value, maybe even from the same buyers. Honorable Maduku, I agree with you in terms of fees. There is the canon, even in stockbroking there is. But I think our business is not to encourage the people we are oversighting towards the ceiling. Our business is to push them towards the floor. Because any savings between the floor and the ceiling, any saving in there is going directly to the Kenyan people through various services. You also talked about divestitures that happens in terms of breaking the parts. Unfortunately, the companies you gave, none is in the business like the one, none is close to Safaricom in the business they are in. But breaking down happens in two levels. There is the breaking down of a company that is too diversified. That is what GE was. At some point, GE had more than 200 parts, and especially when Jack Welch was the CEO. So there is a difference between when you have an agricultural company that also does telco, that also manufactures carpets, that also manufactures camera. That was what GE was. And that is why they are breaking down. What am I trying? I'm looking for words so that they fit into the explanation. Safaricom, you are talking about a company with 3 parts, which all can be a client to each. But beyond being a client to each, at our company will be a client to the telco. And the fintech will also be a client to the telco. But beyond that, it opens the 3 entities to do business with other people. If you are in Kenya and you need to use towers, then you'll go to a tower company that is independent. However, the shareholding will be split across all the 3 entities. The same shareholding that there is in the group will percolate in the 3. Also, the issue of HP, the companies, Honorable Maduku, you agree with me, the scenarios are quite different. The homogeneity of their transaction is very different from the current one. As I finish, cross-listing, I agree, especially regionally. Cross-listings that are happening is cross-listing towards Kenya, not without Kenya. What I mean is that we have regional companies listing in Kenya, like Umeme, like the Bank of Kigali is listed in the NSC, but we barely don't have a lot of Kenyan companies listed elsewhere. However, as you rightly put it, cross-listing is very important also for capital flow. Let me use an example. The other day we saw a company saying they have discovered gold in Kenya worth so much. If you look at that company, a small entity, it was actually at some point listed in the LSE. So they go there, they raise the money, but the money comes to grow our country. It is the same arrangement we should have and encourage, where we have Safaricom, but for it to even realize real value in the market, expose it not to smaller markets than the bigger but the bigger markets. In terms of Africa, our Kenyan companies, including Safaricom, should be looking into cross-listing in JSE, and then go beyond Africa, LSE, you can go to NASDAQ, you can go to NYSE, and the rest. And I agree with you, there is so much value to derive from there. Double layering, as you said, I think the answer is, why do it? If you own this hotel, why do you need a layer of 8 companies? This owning this and the other owning the other. Why would you do all that much work if you are above board?
Thank you, Mheshimiwa Ndindi. Now we'll give Mheshimiwa Mboni, Mheshimiwa Makilap.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Chairman. And thank you, Honorable Nyoro. I think you have given us a lot of insights, and to be very sincere, we need to call some of these institutions so that we can clarify some of the issues we are raising, and which some of us have been concerned. According to you, we are losing 100 billion from this transaction. And based on that, that means the valuation of these Safaricom is 2 trillion, based on 50% sale. And therefore, really, you have not really given us the method of valuation which is bringing you to 300 billion. Because you can either use a market valuation or asset valuation of the company. Because, for example, this hotel, the value of this hotel may be 2 billion, for example. But in terms of financial value and whatever it's making, it may be lower than that. So I think it's important to give us the method which you are using. Secondly, I don't think we are losing through this transaction the way you are putting it, because there was a discount which was given by Communication Authority on the licenses, and therefore we lost 100 million. And the way you are putting it is like all these ones was geared towards selling Safaricom, and therefore we also lost 100 billion. So we are talking about 200 billion, which you have lost through all this process. So maybe you need to clarify that. You did mention that some of the people who are negotiating were not part of the process in your presentation. I looked at it very well. And I was wondering, where and when do transaction advisors come in? Were they not part of this transaction negotiations? Because transaction officer is supposed to lead and guide on transaction and negotiation of that. Mheshimiwa Ndindi Nyoro, you did mention Mobitelea, and it is an issue which has been, people have been trying to avoid. I raised it, I think, with I think Treasury or another company or somebody. And nobody is coming out to tell us where does Mobitelea share stand in this. Because even Mobitelea, that time, it owned 5% of Safaricom. Assuming Vodacom also bought the 5%. And you know, we are made to understand they have 40%. Now suppose they bought 5%, and now they are buying another 15%. Therefore, we are talking about a controlling shareholding by Vodacom of 60%. So maybe you can tell us what happened to this share, because I think you have a lot of insights. And who bought the 5% from Australia, so that at least you can be able to make some of these decisions as a committee. Otherwise, I'm very happy about this presentation, and it has given me a lot of insights on this committee. If we actually follow this, then we can be able to come up with a conclusive understanding and decision on this matter. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mheshimiwa Mboni. Mheshimiwa Makila.
Thank you, Chairman. I've listened very carefully to the presentation done by Honorable Ndindi. And I think, Chairman, whenever we go out and listen to Kenyans, as members of Parliament, we principally look at things objectively, rather than having a part view of where we come politically, how we support politically. For me, looking at objectively and learning some of the things that we needed to understand before we go out to public consultation and even finally discuss it. So I have learned a lot of new things through his presentation. Number one, using his own presentation, page 4, what is called condition precedents. And in his communication, it says communication authority regularly and impulsively extended condition precedent to the buyer. I believe this buyer is Vodacom, which has resulted in losses of around 80 billion on renewable licenses. My question to you, Nyoro, is could we therefore then, or you have evidence to table before this committee, these minutes of extension, who gave them the minutes of extension, and for what purpose? Is it connected to the sale or 15%. It means there is a lot who extend for this condition to affordable. It means there was some boardroom decision that for us to sell this 15%, there is some underlying waivers, which the Kenyan government, through the taxpayers, will lose about 80 billion. We need evidence from you, and it may even ask the chairman us again to call CEO who appeared before us here yesterday, that this give us evidence of boardroom decisions that led to this loss of money through giving waivers to what is called network facility providers for 15 to 20 to 25 years. These are serious matter, Ndindi, Nyoro, that we may even negate the entire process of, because it will reduce the revenue that we are thinking of raising about 204 billion. Because if there are these concessions, these are be a very bad deal. And then you also say in number 12, in a nutshell, the country has lost. When you say has lost, it means already gone. Revenue to over 70 billion. You know, you talked about 100, but in your presentation, in your own words here, has lost to over 70 billion on conditions precedent alone. That means from the sale, the expected sale of 15%, which you are intending to raise 2 or 4 billion, if you subtract 70 billion, you'll remain with around 135 billion. So giving the whole sale to look like a scam or something that does not give us the correct value. So way forward on this matter. If you have evidence, table before this committee. If you don't have evidence, then we need to seek clarification from CA to give us this particular matter. 2, there's something that you skipped on Ethiopian market. Does the shareholding of Safaricom here in Kenya different from the franchise that is being, do you have some different shareholders of Safaricom Ethiopia and Safaricom Kenya? These are mind-boggling questions that we need to understand, so that are we selling therefore shares in Safaricom Kenya, or are we selling this 15% including the shareholding in Ethiopia? This is something that you raised here, and it requires some understanding. Again, in page 5, just like what my colleague has said about Mopitelea. If you are able to see something that we can Google, that at the time of listing Safaricom, the shareholding of government was 35. The shareholding of Vodacom was 35. And at the time of what is called this paper that we have before us, it is 40. At what stage? And then we are assuming that this 5% has been acquired by Vodacom. When did this happen? When did this transaction of acquiring 5%? Because the sessional paper that we have is that Vodacom already owns 40. At what stage was 5% acquired by Vodacom? If you have evidence of at a time when Vodacom decided to buy Mopitelea, then it is also good for this committee to have it, because it means this Vodacom is a big animal that continues to acquire other people inside, small shareholders, and they may even acquire anybody else remaining. And it is a foreign franchise. I'm using your notes very carefully. I don't want to go outside this. Lastly, Chairman, tell us something about, this sessional paper has a timeline that says it takes 28 days from sitting of Parliament. It means if we start sitting on 4th, by 28, if we shall not, by 4th of March, if we shall not have concluded, it is deemed to have approved itself. And therefore, who will take the shares, the dividends? You know, the government may lose dividends to Vodacom that has worked for the whole year, and when it is left with 10 days, the shares changes hands to someone else. Can you tell us about this shareholding, the dividends of the current fiscal year of Safaricom, how it will go? Because how can I lose all the milk of my cow, which I've worked for it for the whole year, just at the wee hours of exchange? Tell us something. You did not say something about it. And finally, tell us something about when Safaricom PLC is being sold, and when the shares, 15% shares of Safaricom is being sold, out as the entire franchise, the value which was at 2021, 1.8 trillion, how will this sale affect the assets of the entire ownership of Safaricom when it will be owned by a foreigner at 55%? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Mheshimiwa Makilap, if you could switch off your mic. Makilap, switch off your mic, please.
Thank you so much, Chair. Like my colleagues, allow me to also take this moment to congratulate our senior colleague in the Parliament. I regard him as senior, being my first term in Parliament, and he's serving his second term. And the way he's with whole heart or passionately following up the issues of the country and for Kenyans. Thank you so much. Chair, from the onset, introduction of the presentation by Honorable Ndindi Nyoro, there is a funny statement I've underlined there that he has referred this transaction as inferior transaction. That implies from your presentation, you've trust out completely. So in fact, like the question Maklab is asking, I think according to you, we should reject this thing outright before even the end of that time. And for us to be able to arrive there, Chair, I'll be able to put some few questions, and don't mind Honorable Ndindi Nyoro, you will find some of our concern will oscillate from what you're putting. Probably you might need to put it better than you already put it. The issue of valuation, this has been a question, a critical question that every other person here has been asking. Even the Cabinet Secretary, we were able to ask him, and he laid his foundation, of course, bringing from the point of view of Section 87A of the FM Act that recently was amended, which gave powers to the Cabinet Secretary to be able to initiate such transactions outside the state-owned Enterprises Act that we also passed in Parliament. Picking from there, he also, from his presentation, he seems to have relied on that provision to negotiate with an existing shareholder in Safaricom, and that is why they arrived at the 4. But I like your thinking outside, because looking at this, it looks like you have relied so much on relative valuation, where you are comparing the market, the behavior of the market. I would wish to know from your knowledge, being expert, combining the intrinsic value, the relative valuation, asset-based valuation, what would be the ideal? Because we are trying to look at the real position of what Kenyans should be able to get, vis-a-vis what we think Treasury has given us the best. Because for any layman person, you will minus 34, minus the current 27, definitely you are making a premium of 7 shillings. I mean, for everyone, for every layman. But from your acumen in relative, which I regard it as an ideal market situation. What if this upgrade by National Treasury is shifted, like from your request, we remove it from the boardroom negotiation, as we called it, and put it to the market, either to the secondary market, Nairobi Stock Exchange, or even invited that it's possible to go outside NSE and go to London Stock Exchange, or New York Stock Exchange for that purpose. What is a certainty? Especially remember, the offer of this is done by the government. And anyone would know when by the time the government is coming for it, like the foundation of this, the cabinet secretary has passionately expressed the need of divesting on this one so that we're able to look for resources or find resources to finance the budget that cannot be sustained by the ongoing borrowing where it has reached the limit. And I've been following you always, you've been telling Kenyans where we've gone high in terms of our borrowing, that it is no more sustainable to keep borrowing. But here is the budget. Here is the budget deficit. I know you've been the chairman of our budget and appropriation, that this country has to run. It has to finance education. It has to finance water. It has to finance the basic social and infrastructural needs. That is why the National Treasury and the government of Kenya has reached out and say, let us exercise what is within us, the assets we have, generate revenue, invest this revenue on these going concern investments, and realize the value later, and of course reduce on the cost of borrowing. Looking at these evaluations and the options we have, you've given us that there's no need to hurry. Well, maybe Cabinet Secretary will tell us and I think Chair, looking at this one, we will still need to have to invite back the National Treasury, Cabinet Secretary, National Treasury, so that some of the questions left by this stakeholder and others who have come here would be able to help us. But from your own understanding, so that Kenyans, our presentation here might draw Kenyans to feel like what is happening here is wrong, like this thing, as you call it, inferior, is the worst. Kenyans will begin to develop those insightful feelings, and in future we might be seeing the reactions here and there where we lose even the real cause of why we are doing this one. Chair, the issue of KCB agent, and which it has got my attention, I would really beseech, because this is a committee of the National Assembly, and our honorable member understands that this is more of a quasi-judicial sitting. And whatever is court hears, whatever is being presented here, it calls for that evidence, so that even the report we are doing, we have to inform. We are duty bound as this joint committee to inform the National Assembly to make the right decision, so that we don't make half-baked. That's why I want to run away from what Chair is saying. Mheshimiwa, you go and you will provide in future some evidence. The information from now is far much more better, because we are a few committee we can sit. If we can get evidence around this, so that it doesn't look like we are just opposing, we are troubleshooting and leaving the fire rolling outside there with all proper information. With the respect of this committee, I would call on the information on this one. There is a question of integrity of this buyer. This buyer, in the earlier behavior, which McLeod has asked, and even me, I was not aware, I'm just listening today, that the shares which were owned by Mobitelea was silently moved. And then it means we have questions to CMA to tell us. CMA was here, we need to call them back and explain to us this one. And there's another statement you've made that there was there's a shareholder who immobilized or ordered. To me, it sounds like economic crime action. And therefore, we have questions on CMA. If possible, because you have expert on this one, so that it doesn't sound like a by-the-way statement or any other political statement, I would request through the chair that our stakeholder, Honorable Ndindi Nyoro, to provide this evidence. The issue, so that I don't repeat what you said much on this, the information on the dealers, that's a big thing. It can be a breaking news that the National Treasury indeed never initiated or they never participated in that boardroom. There are other figures, other imaginary faces who are there sitting down, that we need to know how are they contracted. Were they given express contracted role and responsibility to act on behalf of the government, other than the KCB being what we call the transaction advisor? We have another people from the information you have. And then lastly, this information about Communication Authority of Kenya, that without the board, management sat down and gave express authority to discount what ought to have come to build our economy for the sake of person again who is going to buy. So in any case, we will calculate the loss in terms of value you are giving us, that we are losing. Instead of getting the 390, we are getting 200. So already there's a 190 loss, and then there's another 100 loss in terms of the licenses. So we are losing around 290 billion to get 200 billion. I think your statement initiates that we are actually giving out free, including giving out additional money of around 290 billion. With all this put together, it is wise and to me it could be prudent, Chair, if we get all this evidence so that this committee can make the right decision to present to the National Assembly and inform the National Assembly to also make the right decision, either to reject it, because you said they don't even need to amend, either to reject it from your point of view or to approve it either way. Thank you.
I think for the rejection and approval, it's for us, and he'll be in the House to do his bit, so I think he should just not respond to that one. Mheshimiwa Oyula?
Thank you, Chair. Chair, let me also add my voice to this. And I start by thanking Mheshimiwa Ndindi Nyoro for opening up our eyes. I'm particularly very grateful because when I look at some of this information, it reminds me of what I used to think. For instance, Mobitel, you'd want to know when they sold this 5%, and if you can get to know the amount they sold, because that would also encourage the current buyer, if he's the one who bought the Mobitel shares, you'd say, since I bought this at this price, then I think you can still go lower. Chair, Mheshimiwa Ndindi Nyoro has told us that when the Safaricom went to Ethiopia, the value of the company, was it shares?
What he's asking is, when you said when Ethiopia went, when Safaricom invested in Ethiopia, the shares went down.
No, the value
Then so he said the share, not the value.
Yeah, there's the value of the company which went to 1.8 trillion. So I was wondering, would that also help in determining the value of the shares? If it does, what would be the calculation? Chair, this issue of immobilizing the shares, as Mheshimiwa, as I just mentioned, Mheshimiwa Ruto, it borders on criminality because we are not being told the truth. We are told that the shares were being sold at a premium. The market value is 27, we're getting 34, so they are selling at a premium. It doesn't appear to be having a premium. There must be some cheating somewhere. So possibly you could open up and tell us more about this premium. Is it really there? Or it's just a cover-up? I think we still need more information to guide us. In fact, if this is rejected before the sale is done, then I think the government would benefit more in going to open market.
Thank you, Mheshimiwa Oyula. I think, Mheshimiwa Ndindi, most of the questions were more or less related. So I'll kindly, because of time also, if you could just be precise kindly, so that we can get to this. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. I'll do exactly as you guided by being very brief. And you allow me, since Honorable Karuma is here, to only answer of all his questions only one. When you talk about, I had answered the others, the valuation and the share price. There is no way you can distinguish that because the valuation, what is called market capitalization, is the sum total of all the shares listed times their market price that day. That's why the market cap of companies keeps on changing. Market cap, what I'm trying to say, does not necessarily communicate the valuation of the company based on the many examples I've given, some that have happened in the last 1 year, like Baburi and Amson, some that have happened in the year 2023 of Rea Pipico, selling in the market at 27.50 and eventually selling, buying the shares at 85 shillings for the same share. So I'm just trying to say, Honorable Chair, it will be a tragedy if Kenya relies on the market in this transaction. because the buyer knows that. And that's why they are capitalizing. So let me go to my brother, Honorable Boni. And I'll attach the same question has been asked, I think, by Honorable Makirab. The money I have listed there we are losing is on condition precedent alone. Condition precedent, as I said, when there is a transaction, there is some informal discussions you have, then you formalize them. It's like when, just using an example, you are selling a house. And me as the buyer, you give me a condition precedent. Me as a seller, I give you a condition precedent. That I'm selling you this house in Nairobi because I'm relocating. But any time I'm in Nairobi, I'll be coming, those 2 rooms are for me to occupy. And you sign. So that's the condition precedent. So the condition precedent answering all of us are the conditions the government of Kenya has already agreed to. Not based on anything else, based on the current transaction. As sweeteners for this transaction, the government of Kenya has already given up 50% of NPF license fee alone. Honorable Chair, that is, on one license, we are losing 40 billion Kenya shillings. One license. On a discount, given how? Given only by the management of CA. They actually gave this authorization before the board met. It is just not right.
What's your point of order, Mheshimiwa Kaluma?
Chair, you know, this issue is very serious. First, at page 4, it is indicated you are losing over 80 billion. When you turn over on the same matter, paragraph 12, it is over 70 billion. So we want to be clear on the amount. But what I heard the questioner asking is the evidence of these discounts and the monies that are being lost on renewal of licenses. Where is the evidence of it? And I'm asking this because if there is evidence, then it is huge.
No, that's why I think he hasn't even gone to answer that. He was just giving his view on where. So he hasn't gone to where that he was asked by a member to give evidence if there is. So just allow him to respond, and so that he can get to that question that was asked by the previous member.
Including how the waivers compute to the amount.
Yes. Yeah. Go ahead. Mheshimiwa Ndindi.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair, and thank you very much, Honorable Kaluma also. How Kenya charges licenses is not anything you need to go and look for. It is cast on brick and mortar. It's not anything to negotiate. So it's upon this committee to check the agreement.
I think Mheshimiwa Ndindi, yes,
I
we
go to
made
the next.
clear. As you said that, and I think one of the Mheshimiwas did allude that we need to call Communication Authority back to the committee to verify on that.
Although, Chair,
yes.
With due respect
yes.
To Mheshimiwa Ndindi, since this is already a committee sitting, and he's been also a chair, and he understands the operators of the rest of the committees, I would wish any statement said here, it has more weight. Everyone is following, Kenyans are following. If today we would get that evidence here, more than the way Chair, we will have a reason now to call the other person with the evidence provided by your stakeholder here, so that it doesn't, because they will also come here
I think
and tell us,
wait,
Chairman, they will come here and tell us, call the person who say to come here. And we will have...
And Mheshimiwa, hold on, let us not go through that route. And Mheshimiwa Boni, allow me, I'm on the floor, please. I'll give you an opportunity, just allow me.
Just a minute.
Mheshimiwa, the chair is on the floor, just allow me, then I will give you.
Point of order, Chair.
What is out of order, Mheshimiwa Boni?
Chair,
And
as I said,
now,
the information which Honorable Nyoro is giving us is us to verify it.
I think that's where I was just heading.
As government institutions. So I think let him continue to give us.
I think that's what I was heading to Mheshimiwa Boni. what is important, he has given us the information. It's for us as a committee to do the follow-up so that
Point of order, Chair.
there's nothing out of order. The chair is on the floor. Allow me to just, so that we make progress. There's no point of us just going around.
But the chair could be proceeding wrongly, Chair.
How is it?
Just allow me the point of order. Chair, on information Honorable Ndindi is possessed of, he has done a computation and come to a figure of 80 billion, or let me say over 70 billion. And I'm saying this is material. This amount he has written in the memorandum, he must have computed it based on some information. That is the information we are requiring him to evidence. If it is in the instrument, let him tell us under this clause, there has been waiver, the computation was derived this way. Otherwise, Chair, we risk the danger of calling these regulators and they tell you nothing like that has happened. Then it is their word against his. We would have not helped Kenyans if indeed there is something. So could we have something more?
Mheshimiwa Kaluma, just to rephrase it, if Mheshimiwa Ndindi just gave us a document and said, yes, this is the proof, that would not be still good enough. We need to go out there to get the facts. So we cannot just say any document he produces or we ask him to produce will just be the gospel truth. So let's allow him to do that. It is up to the honors on the committee to go and get the information that, so that for us to verify whether what it is fact or is just something that Mheshimiwa, so leave it to the committee. Mheshimiwa Ndindi.
Thank you, Chair. I'll proceed now without revisiting that issue. But I'm available, Chair. I know I have the information that you need. In case you don't get it, I am available.
In case we need more info from you, we'll definitely invite you back to the committee.
Thank you very much. Honorable Boni, in terms of public officers, you asked, it's not transaction advisors I meant. I meant an informal people, individuals. And I can tell you this, Chair, that when the announcement was made of this transaction, the people you saw on TV announcing it, they knew it 2 days before. The people who negotiated, where they traveled, they are not government officials. And that's why I am asking, let them give us. These are the committee that was appointed by the National Treasury to negotiate on behalf of government. So they were not TAs. TA, you remember, a TA is also a resource that you hire as government. So we now go back to the same question. How did you hire these TAs? And especially TAs who have conflict of interest, that they do business with our buyers and they are there negotiating for us as the sellers. Who bought 5% of Mobitelea? It is the current buyer. And if you don't get information, I'll come with it.
Chair.
What's your point of order,
No, it's a point. I'm seeking clarification. Huh? Honorable Ndindi, we are told there is a TA, and we have issues about how the TA was procured. Very fundamental issues as a committee. What if the people you saw speaking were agents of the TA? Would there be a problem there? Because the TA, we are told, is KCB something. Okay? So what if the people you saw now speaking were people engaged by the TA in the transaction under the agreement?
Honorable Karuba, this is what I mean. In this committee, you have more information you can get than me as an individual. I want to make this in the record. The people you saw of the government from the National Treasury announcing this deal in that December morning, they knew about this transaction, the fine details, 2 days before they appeared on TV. The people who are running this transaction are not government officials. And some of them, they do business with our buyers. So I think that is clear. Secondly, TA, in terms of KCB, it's simple for the committee. Tell the government to give you the agreement they made with KCB. You realize it was after the announcement. So it was not the business of the TA, which is KCB Capital, to come up with the price. So who came up with the price? Because you can't tell us you're hiring KCB Capital today for something you announced a month ago. Then it means they were not in charge of pricing. 5% stake of Mobitelea was bought by our current buyers, proposed buyers. They are the ones who bought. The bigger question should be, as it was asked by Honorable Oyura, very good question, at how much? Because you may realize they can make a very good deal with a private person, but a very bad deal with the government, because the government is amorphous. Second, the other point, those who remember Safaricom IPO, the bigger thing, by that time, Honorable Karuma, you remember, the politics was very toxic. The issue of Mobitelea was bigger than Safaricom IPO. How did it just squeeze itself in? It got itself to our current buyers. Can we trust them now that they are not also making similar deals with the people in power? Honorable Makila, quotation precedent, I talked about it. It is in two ways as you do your due diligence, Chair. One is in terms of waiver. The amount they were promised to pay is half the price they ought to pay. And Honorable Kaluma, when I talk about over 70 billion shillings, there are two licenses I have not calculated. It can go higher. So, quotation precedent, that informal discussion that the government had with the current buyer, which they also formalized, is costing our country the much money I have talked about. So the net proceeds from this sale, if you net out that, is less than that 135 billion shillings. And I've listed one of the license. If you need the names of the other four, I'll give you. In terms of, and the number two laws, Chair, is in terms of waiver, but the number two laws is in terms of period. What do I mean? You see, when you go and take a driving license in Kenya, let's say you take a driving license of 3 years, and then you pay the government of Kenya, I'm just giving for comparison's sake. That's not the amount we pay. Let's say we pay 5,000. You get that, Chair? So you pay for 3 years. So you know it's a government, is a revenue stream for government that we renew our licenses. That's why we are never given driving licenses for life or passports. Because the government anticipates this as also a revenue earner. So you come here, you are given a driving license that was to be for 3 years, you pay 5,000 like everyone else. But another person goes and decides and talks to the government, oh, I'll still pay the five, please give me still for that period, but I'll pay half the price. Now this is the most heartbreaking thing. We are receiving half the amount for the license, but extending the period of the license from 15 years to 25 years. So we lose number one on the quantum, but we also lose because the government that will be there in the next 15 years will have to wait for 25 years instead of 15 for them to receive revenue from that license again. Ethiopia market, I agree. Honorable, I think, let me combine, still Makila. I had put it in my memorandum. We get clear definition of shareholding. Remember, this transaction is dealing with a group, but the group incorporates also M-Pesa, M-Pesa Africa. It incorporates also Ethiopia. So, at this particular time now, can Kenya know how much stake Kenya owns in Ethiopian operations? Because the shareholders here in the group are not necessarily the ones in Ethiopia as shareholders there. As I go to the finish, I agree with Honorable Makirap on valuation. Safaricom shares was worth 45 shillings in 2021. The valuation was therefore 1.8 trillion in 2021. A point where so much money was also being reinvested in Ethiopia. The intervening years, the profit went a little down. Why? Because a lot of money was also going into the Ethiopian investment. Now, Chairman, this is the thing. This financial year, up to the first half of, I think September is the half year of Safaricom, they had a 52% increment in profit, bottom line. So we are selling Safaricom based on the previous profits. That's why this deal in Harakishwa so that by the time Safaricom announces their full year profits, which will be over 52% increment, the deal will have already been done. And I can give you this also, Chairman, because we are here as Kenyans, we will see. This is a teaser. By next year, maybe by the time this committee finishes this, you will see the government saying, oh, we saw some people also saying they also want to buy. What I want to assure you is this. They will also want to sell the 20%. And hold me to my word. Honorable CPA, Ruto, before I come there, this is the other bad thing I think we are doing. Currently, Kenya has borrowed, I don't want to go into the debts. We are now over 12.5, close to 12.5 trillion Kenya shillings in public debt. But, because the mainstream borrowing is squeezed, now we have brought another English terms here. We are calling funds. Chairman, that we are selling Safaricom and selling the other assets to use them as a deposit the way we go to a SACCO. You know the way you go to a SACCO and you are told, we give you 3 times of your savings. That is what the government want to experiment. That even after raising this money, they want to leverage it. They want to borrow multiples of this money. In fact, their plan is to borrow times 9. So you leverage times 1, and then you borrow times 9. So we raise, let's say, 300 billion. But the plan of government is not even the one you are raising. It is the one you are going to borrow in that SACCO in quotes. Chairman, we will not run away from this as a country. Senegal is just a recent example for us to learn from. If you start opening up multiple loan books as a country, it will catch up with you pretty soon. We've already done that in terms of dividend here, that we are imagining as a country, there is no country in the next 5 years. So we need the money for the next 5 years today. And I hear government experts talking about, oh, we have done the present value of this money. When you're in government, you don't do present value of money. You can't, because the government operates in perpetuity. At the very least, you need to do future value of annuity. And the difference is huge. As I finish, Chairman, for CPA Ruto. Again, it is inferior based on valuation. Inferiority of this deal is based on Kenya has been relegated in a corner to canvass for just an air of breath. I mean, you are the owner, and you are being squeezed by the seller. Sorry, you are the owner and you are being squeezed by the buyer. Chairman, one thing will answer this in one bullet. Advertise 15% GOK stake in the international markets. I guarantee you 2.5 trillion Kenya shillings will be too little for the valuation. If you look at 2021, it was 1.8 trillion. So the honorable members, my brothers and sisters who were asked about what my valuation would be, we should not be discussing anything below 45 per share. We should now be discussing about what we have done in Ethiopia, which was not present in 2021. Our discussion should be starting from there. But we've been cornered by these guys. We are now gasping for breath on the side of the loss. It is not good. It's not prudent. The other issue, I think is the last one. This issue, we are being treated, these other issues may take time, it is uncertain. So, we are looking for these guys, they are already on the table. Is that a precedence we want to set as a country? That if I identify public land, I go to the ministry and say, I am a buyer here, I am offering this. And then the ministry will justify and say, oh, we have some willing buyer who is already buying at this price. Because that is the reasoning globally. I mean, holistically, if we are permitted now, that, okay, I can go to the treasury tomorrow and say, I want to buy Kenyari. And then they look at the market. Kenyari shares, the valuation is 17 billion shillings as of today. Okay, I tell them, I want to buy at a small premium, I'll pay you 22 billion. And they agree and we sign and I run away with Kenyari. What am I running away with? This is a company which has no loans, Their cash and cash equivalent is 41 billion, and their net assets is 51 billion. We'll be creating oligarchs because we'll just cut corners, take government assets for free, and purport to be the only buyers in the market. Who said there is the only buyer? If I show intention of buying Kenyari, the good thing for the National Treasury to do, in case they want to sell it, put up a bid. Maybe I'm offering 22 billion. Another person will go to the financial statement and see what I have seen. It's in the public domain. And realize, oh my, I'm buying a company at 22 billion. And upon opening the keys of the company, the cash inside and the cash equivalent is 41 billion. So I take the 17, pay them, and I'm left with all the other assets for free. It is a bad precedent, Honorable Chair. Otherwise, the issue of immobilization again, there are issues I'm talking in terms of you may seek information. The shares were immobilized in the first and second week of June of 2025. And the people who immobilized 16 billion shares of Safaricom is none other than our current buyer. And they were doing it so that they struggled the price of Safaricom. And so that the market senses there is an oversupply of the shares, and so that they maintain the share price suppressed until the transaction is done. Otherwise, for all those years, they had never seen the need of immobilizing their shares. So the need came up this year in June. So Honorable Chair, as a close, I want to thank you. And the issue of, again, KCB, sorry, because it repeated itself in terms of the Honorable CPA, Ruto. This issue of KCBs, as I'm repeating, is simple. Just tell them to commit through writing. Now, not in the future now. That yes, we are the TA. But because we actually also own, KCB, remember, even if the government has a minority stake of 19%, they control the entire board. Because the other 81% of the shareholders do not talk to each other. So during the AGM, you vote all your directors using the 19%. So what am I trying to say? Tell them just to do in writing and you put in archives whether there is a stockbroker's agent who is also under this transaction. If they are raised, call them and ask them, what role are they playing for them to be paid 40% of the 3 billion? That's the question we need to have. Otherwise, thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much, Mheshimiwa Ndindi Nyoro, for appearing before the committee, doing your presentation and submission to the committee, and responding to the members. Mheshimiwa Ruto, we have, time is totally against us. Kindly, if
I can just seek clarification from you.
Definitely, no.
Yes, not from the witness, but I mean the stakeholder, but from you.
Okay, right.
Reading Article 91, there's a ruling that you made, and I'm still thinking with it. Looking at standing order number 91. Of course, though it refers to a member of parliament, I wanted you to demystify to me the difference between the stakeholder we have, who has introduced himself as Ndindi Nyoro, office of the member of parliament, Kiaru, and what Article 91 is saying in relation to the ruling you made in regards to evidence. Thank you.
91 is substantiation.
I think the honourable member is here as a stakeholder. He did not come here as a member of parliament, and he wrote to the clerk of the National Assembly. That one maybe used it as a headline, that's what I understand. But as we look at that, he wrote to the National Assembly requesting to come and attend this hearing as a stakeholder, which he did. So I think that, but as a committee, if there's any matter that we feel he needs to come back to clarify and provide more information, we are at liberty to ask him to appear before the committee any given time. So, Mheshimiwa Ndindi Nyoro, asante sana. members, thank you so much for the time, and I think it's best now we break for a quick lunch of maybe 30 minutes. Yes, Mheshimiwa Ndindi?
It's just a closing remark. I think it's polite.
No, Honorable Chair, does Honorable Ndindi have any information you would have wished to give us other than in the form of
I think we have gone beyond that, Mheshimiwa Ndindi, and I will just give you an opportunity.
No, I don't know Ndindi.
Mheshimiwa, just 1 minute of closing remark. Don't digress.
Thank you very much, Chair. I am very, very pleased to have appeared before these honorable members. Thank you very much for listening to me and also for Parliament granting me this opportunity. Chairman, from my heart, I believe that we must not operate like what is called a prisoner's dilemma in Kenya. That even the things that should bring us together, they tear us apart. This transaction is Kenya against the buyers. And therefore, let's not see it in terms of lenses, political lenses. If Kenya, I'm here proposing Kenya gets more money. If Kenya gets more money, let's say we get 150 billion more. It means 150 constituencies in Kenya can get an allocation of 1 billion shillings to build roads. 1 billion, over 20 kilometers of road. So I'm doing it in good faith. And I hope that, Chairman, any other information you may need based on this transaction before you close, I'll also provide it in good faith. If Kenya gets more money, we all benefit and Kenya progresses. Thank you very much, members, and I am grateful.
Asante sana, and the time being 15:06, this meeting is officially adjourned. We break for lunch. Let's try and be here at 3:30, so that CBK have been waiting for us for the past hour, so that we get on. Asante sana, Bwana Ndindi. Karibu, now you can join us also for lunch. Asante. Thank you so much. No, the meeting has already been adjourned.